Reform UK has announced plans for a US-style immigration enforcement agency. Zia Yusuf's Reform UK's immigration spokesperson said that officers would track down, detain and deport all illegal migrants and that they would be running 5 return flights a day. I want to ask this question, given Wednesday's by-election, should you have to speak English to vote? It's interesting, right? Let's speak to my panel. Campaigns Director and Spokesperson for Restore Britain, Charlie Downs, broadcaster Christo Fufast and journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Liss. Christo Fufast, I'll start with you. Do you think you need to be able to speak English to vote?
Yes, but I don't know how you would, in practical terms, enforce it. From a moral perspective, I think that if you have been here long enough that you should be, integrating enough and you're able to vote, yes, you should speak English. I think that that's an absolutely number one in integrating into the United Kingdom. Other than some sort of test or something, I'm not sure how would you then remove voting rights from someone who didn't pass an English test. I don't know how in practice enforcing that would work. That would be my worry.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm very pleased to see Reform adopting our position on these matters, having removed Rupert Lowe from the party in quite a, despicable fashion for raising the topic of mass deportations just last year. They have now shifted to our position, I think largely because of our pressure and the success that we've had campaigning on these issues. So on the deportations point, I think it's great to hear Reform adopting our framing. But what I will say is that I don't believe for a second that they would do it if they were in government, because we have seen what these people do in government, because most of them have already been in cabinet. Robert Jenrick, Suella Braverman. These people are the architects of the present migration crisis that we have in this country.
To be fair to both of those, they left on a point of principle, and it was...
They still oversaw the largest influx of legal migrants ever in this country.
Talking, actually. Yeah, but they left on a point of principle that they couldn't initiate their policies because they were still in the ECHR and they weren't happy. Now, I'm not defending them, but I'm just putting it in context.
I mean, look, they both criticised the failures of the government that they were absolutely central to. It's the most ludicrous spectacle I've ever seen in my life. They should own their own failure and allow the British people to judge if they want, based on the track record, if they want them back in government again. I share this. I feel extremely queasy about any kind of test that might be imposed on a prospective voter. Either you're allowed to vote or you're not. We saw in the darkest chapter of US history, Jim Crow laws in the South, where you had literacy tests that basically were a way of disenfranchising black voters. The idea that you would ask someone to make any kind of test in order to vote makes me feel extremely uneasy.
But if you can't speak English, though, how can you meaningfully...
If you are allowed, if you have a passport, if you're allowed to vote, if you meet the legal criteria for voting, that is your criteria.
Well, maybe they could add that in there.
I mean, it should be noted, actually, that in this country, Commonwealth citizens are allowed to vote.
Yeah, and stand in elections. Can you believe this? Foreign nationals are allowed to stand in elections.
That's an imperial hangover. I would be no other country reciprocates that for Britain, by the way. I'd be very happy to abolish that rule to say that only British citizens should be able to vote in British elections.
So maybe it should never get to the point of voting that you just simply do not get your citizenship until you have learnt how to speak our language. And then that would never come up because you would then obviously have the language skills to be able to vote.
Well, Christo, I mean, when you become a UK citizen, you do have to pass a test. So presumably you need to speak English in order to pass that test.
But then how have we got so many people here who are able to vote who don't speak English?
Well, that is the Commonwealth issue, because it's foreign nationals from countries like Bangladesh, for example, who come to the country, are not citizens but can vote, and therefore don't have to speak English.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's ridiculous. It's completely insane.
It's a hangover of empire where we extended. It doesn't. Well, I agree with you on that point. We don't need to. I'm very in favour of migration, as you know, but I don't think that we need to extend the franchise to people who are not
integration is so important, and that is, all of this that we talk about. The reason we're getting so fractured is because of the fact that integration is just not happening, and we need to make sure it happens. And some of that is on the state. I think it's on the individual as well. You should go to a country and want to speak the language, want to integrate. integrate, but also the state needs to facilitate that.
But what does integration even mean in 2026 when we're living in
language
such
to start with?
I mean, that's pretty basic.
The vast majority of people speak English. Come on.
Well, sure, but what does integration even mean at this point? Because it hasn't worked. I mean, the project of like British values, like the idea that if you just believe in democracy and the rule of law, individual liberty and stuff, that makes you British. This has not worked. This has been the project of Blair and later Cameron, and Michael Gove as Education Secretary enshrined these principles in law in 2014, and still we are seeing an increasing ethno-religious balkanisation in our towns.
Charlie, you're the one who's advocated this balkanisation. You don't think that I'm English, even though I've lived in this. I was born in England. I've lived here my whole life, but because I'm Jewish, but he comes from an Eastern European Ashkenazi Jewish background, you don't think I'm English. Now that, for me, is advocating in that political perspective, the classification of people.
Can I just ask you, do you think I'm English?
Look, let's put that to one side for the minute, because we're going to go down a rabbit hole if we start talking about this sort of thing, and we don't have time to give it the detail that it deserves, okay? So if we could just stay on this point.
Can I just stop you there? I know exactly how much time we've got, and there's no breaks in this hour. We've got time.
Right, okay, well, listen.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just live in credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
If you want to go down this route, then I'm happy to do so, because
it is just a question.
But it is an important issue about what it means to be British.
What does it mean to be
English.
British then? Okay.
Well, I mean, we have made it very clear. Restore Britain have made it very clear that our position is that Britishness is not just defined by having a British passport. It is not just defined by believing in a set of abstract corporate-style values like democracy and the rule of law.
What is it defined?
Well, let me finish. So the position
is defined by, not what it is.
The position of every mainstream party, from Reform UK right the way through to the Greens, is that Britishness is defined by having a passport or believing in democracy, right? In our view, that is an absolutely ridiculous definition, because Britain and the constituent nations that make this country up, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, are ancient peoples. These are ancient nations that have existed continuously for over 1,000 years.
Yes.
And so there is a difference.
There is a difference. So am I British?
There is a difference between somebody...
Am I British?
Nana, I'm going to get to that.
I was born in Newcastle. I'm a Geordie. Am I British?
Well, look, you're born in Britain, you know, and all the rest of it. So in that sense, yes, you are British.
So
but there is
which bit of me isn't then?
Well, there is obviously a spectrum, because there is a difference between somebody who has come here in the last 5 years and got themselves a passport, and somebody like me, whose family has been in this country literally for thousands of years. Okay, there is a difference there, and this is an important difference.
Have you heard of Cheddar Man?
Yes.
Cheddar Man, turns out that he may well have been black and was here.
Oh, I think that's...
No, it hasn't been fully. And apparently he was the first person in this country, and he was potentially black. In fact, if it is true that mankind came from Africa, then you come from Africa.
Well, I'm a Christian, so I think we all share a common ancestor.
Well, you might believe that, but science says otherwise, that mankind came from Africa. If you're going, how far back are you going? I'm going back to the beginning.
For what?
Well, mankind.
For mankind?
Well, if they're saying the creation of mankind and mankind came from Africa, then you're from Africa. Your heritage all the way further back.
Well, if the out of Africa theory is correct, then yes, but that doesn't mean that doesn't make me African now.
Well, it means that there's a piece of you that is, which means you're not British.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying
it's because I'm black, isn't it?
Oh, come on, come on.
I think he's not. But you don't think she's English. You don't think I'm English. You don't think she's English.
No. Hang on. So let's just get to the bottom of this very quickly.
Well,
this is really important, right?
If you could.
If I was born in China, that wouldn't make me Chinese, because Chinese, and well, I mean, there are many ethnicities contained within the category of Chinese, but it is fundamentally an ethnic identity. It's not a civic identity. And in the same way, if just because you're born in England doesn't make you English, I'm sorry, it doesn't.
But I think it's a fair point for Nana to ask about if you're going to have that policy. Great, but how far back are you?
One generation. If you have, hang on,
come on, let me just ask.
Come on.
If I had English grandparents, but
you don't even have to go back that far. Let me come on.
Well,
Come on.
Are you defining how far back we're
going? If you have an English parent, then you are. If you have two English parents, then you're English. If you have one English parent, then you're half English.
So you're saying that Nana's children,
so are my children? They're mixed race. Now this is where it gets. This gets a bit tricky because they're mixed race. I was born in this country. They're mixed race, so they're not white, but my partners were English. But I don't know how far back they're English.
They're half English.
Yeah, but what if before then the thing was the dad was Irish?
Well, then they'd be half Irish, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but
no, they wouldn't. They'd be a quarter.
No, they'd be a quarter.
Well, so if your partner's parents, one of them was Irish.
You said it's a generation, isn't it?
So if one of them was Irish and one of them was English, that means your partner is half English and half Irish. That would mean that your children are 1/4 English and 1/4 Irish.
This is illustrating the ludicrousness of this debate.
But it's not, because everything that I've just said is factual, and I'm sure that plenty of people listening at home will understand what it is that I'm getting at here, because these are real things.
I don't get it. I'm not at home. I'm here right next to you.
But human beings are not just a grey, homogenous mass. There are differences between different groups of people who come from different places. The English, for example, are an ethnic group. They are a historic ethnic group. And by the way, who has a right to exist.
So now you're using history, but when we said it was history, then you went one generation back. I've gone to the beginning. I've gone to the beginning, which would be that science suggests that mankind was born in Africa and made in Africa, and it spread out to all the different whatevers. And now I'm saying, well, if you go that far back, then you have African. You're African.
Yeah, a lot of things have happened between them and now.
What you're talking about is being white, basically.
No, it's not. No. I'm not going to let you consider that.
White English. You can say white English might be
but
ethnicity.
White has nothing to do with it.
English is coming from England.
What's coming from then?
Well,
born here, growing up here, the only place we've ever known.
So if I was born in China, would I come from China?
If you were born in China, you spent your whole life in China, you spoke Chinese, you integrated perfectly into society, I see no reason why you couldn't be Chinese. Well, I don't see why, because you are racialising it.
Come on.
You just oppose it. No, I'm sorry, you just opposed me. No, I'm not. I'll tell you why.
Hang on,
let Christo, why is he being unfair?
I think where I agree with your point is that I do think it is more than being handed a passport that gives you your nationality. I do think that is more. But when Nana asked about her children, you didn't bring in ethnicity into them being English. You said, OK, they're half English. You didn't say, well, actually, no, their skin tone would change that. So I don't think it's fair for you to bring in...
No, because he's racialising it. Of course, because he just racialised it in China. Because the only difference between him, if he lived his whole life in China, spoke Chinese, never knew any other place, why couldn't he be? He says it's a ludicrous idea that he couldn't be Chinese. Why? Because he doesn't look like other Chinese people.
The reason why, hang on, the reason why is because I don't believe that the Chinese would accept me as one of their own.
Why?
Well, but English people...
But that's
because of their culture.
That's not whether you believe they'll accept you or not isn't the point.
Well, that does matter, though. Because if a people doesn't accept you as one of their own, you can't call yourself part of that people.
So are you saying that because I'm black, people won't accept me?
I'm not going down that route with you.
No, because apparently English people are white and all this.
I haven't said that. I haven't said that.
Well, then why are you using the Chinese analogy then? With you being Chinese, if you didn't look Chinese, are you now saying that you couldn't be Chinese if you were born in China? That's what I'm asking you.
The reason that I brought the Chinese point in is because nobody would deny that Chinese is an ethnicity. It is a group that exists, right? And if I was born in China as an Englishman, that wouldn't make me Chinese. Just as if somebody who is Chinese was born in England.
So would you say that English is an ethnicity, but then why can't Nana be English?
So
why can't I be English?
I'm not English.
If you're saying it's not about race, then why can't the two of us be English?
Because you've already said that you're from Eastern... Your family's from Eastern Europe.
My great-grandparents, I was born here.
OK,
My grandmother was born here, my great-great-grandparents.
Was your dad born here? Because I think you might be English, according to Charlie. Was your dad English? Because if he was, then I think you might be English, according to his...
My father was born in Poland.
OK.
So neither of my parents...
Polish?
Well, I mean, according to your definition...
well, if you asked your dad, what would he say?
He wouldn't say he was Polish at all.
Well, despite the fact that he was born in Poland.
Well, he was born in Poland. He was born in Poland. Well, I mean, if you can go back down that rabbit hole if you want, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. They didn't exactly feel very welcome in Poland at the end of the war. So Polish identity wasn't a thing that my father had and that I inherited. And a lot of people, what we're getting into now is quite the vexed question of mixed identities and identity being actually quite a complicated thing. And that is why I so vigorously oppose what you're saying about Englishness being this ring-fenced idea. There's this purity that can't be vitiated. It's absolute nonsense. It's like it's a geneticist argument.
But the only group that this argument is made against is the English. The English are the only group that are not allowed to have their own identity.
I'm saying that
I don't know why this is.
I say that white. You can say that white. Look, the problem that
white is nothing. Jonathan,
white English can be an ethnicity. White English can be an ethnicity.
White is nothing.
Well, because then in that case, what is the difference between the two of us and you? And I do have white skin, by the way, but you say I'm not English. So why?
Because it's an ethnicity.
OK, so why can't I be part of the ethnicity?
Because it's about
I just told you my great-grandparents were born here, so why can't I be part of the ethnicity then?
I think the problem here is that the argument sort of, it's like a loop, because when you get to try and get to the minutiae of it, it then doesn't make sense, and then it doesn't kind of work.
But the thing is, these are not black and white categories.
Mitch, you're making it up.
There's Chinese in there as well.
When you did the Chinese analogy, I'm sorry, that's when your whole sort of philosophy fell apart. But let's bring in my panel in Washington, political strategist Matthew Hurt, and also Washington correspondent for The Telegraph, Connor Stringer. We got into the rabbit hole, that we were scrabbling around for things in the rabbit hole. Let's get out of the rabbit hole, and let's ask you. I'll start with you, Connor. Talk to me then. Do you think that people need to be able to speak English if they're going to vote?
Not to go back into the rabbit hole, but goodness me, that watch was exactly why I think Charlie's argument is complete guff. I mean, what are you, the sorting hat of who's British and who's not, and where? And I'm considered Northern Irish. My mother is Irish, my dad British. Where do we lie? And as Christo said, how far back are we going? Are we going back to the origins of Africa? Where are we going? Where does the buck stop? I mean, it's completely nonsensical. Yes, I believe that Brits or anybody who's giving a passport does not by de facto make you British. I can get an American passport, doesn't make me an American. Look at me, I've got skin as white as a ghost. I'm as Irish as it comes. But how and why we think that we can define people by the amount of time they spend is ridiculous.
All right, Charlie, you can respond to that if you wouldn't mind, because he said your argument was guff.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, again, these are the kind of conversations that people have at the end of a civilization, when you don't even have the self-confidence to assert yourself as a people. I mean, like, the fact that we're here is just so concerning to me, because if we're not even prepared to acknowledge that the British people exist...
honestly, do you really believe, honestly, genuinely, do you really believe that this is the end of the British white Christian civilization?
Again, white. Why are you bringing white into it? Because that has nothing to do with anything that I've said.
This is where it's
what I will
from.
say is that it certainly looks like the end of our civilization, because our demographics are so dire, our people are so demoralised. Nobody believes in anything in this country anymore, and as a result, we're not having any children. We're aborting all of our children, in fact, and we're approaching a point where we as a people are going to cease to exist in the next 50 to 100 years. So yes, I would say we are actually at a civilizational moment that demands difficult conversations be had of the type that we're having right now. And people get very uncomfortable about these issues, but actually it's exactly those issues that need to be grappled with, because if we don't grapple with them, we're screwed.
All right. Well, I think you make a point that it's true that people of colour are actually, and I hate this phrase, the global majority, and it does seem that people who are white are having less and less kids, but I don't think that sort of, that kind of moves away from the argument of being British.